Hello folks, it's me, DeMontropolis, following up my previous review of Mega Man 1 with the next game in the series, Mega Man 2, released in 1988 for the NES. It's a direct sequel to the first game, and going off of what I said about the first game, there's a lot of improvements that have to be made in order for it to make the cut. While it used to be considered one of the best NES games ever made, its retrospective status within the community has been very rough, to the point where it's hard to get a general consensus about it anymore. Regardless, it's important to consider how the game came to be. As the first game didn't sell very well despite good reviews, it wasn't enough to justify an immediate sequel. However, the development team asked Capcom if they could work on a sequel, and they got the gig, as long as it was worked on concurrently with other projects. By the end, the development time only lasted 3 to 4 months. Quite surprising when you really think about it. But anyway, I'm excited to talk about this game, so let's get started with the review. Mega Man 2. Unlike the previous review, I'll be mixing pros and cons together to keep a better flow going, and I got a little counter up here for y'all to keep track of. Unlike most other games at the time, Mega Man 2 provides us with an opening cutscene to start us off. We're given a brief introduction to Mega Man's purpose, but now the villain of the previous game, Dr. Wily, wants revenge, having created 8 of his own Robot Masters specifically for combat. On the music side, the ending theme from the first game is repurposed here and lowered in pitch to be less annoying, but it elevates in sync with the camera moving up this tall building, and at the top, the music kicks into overdrive and we see our helmetless hero watching over the city, ready to defend it. And when you're ready to start, he's ready to start, materializing his helmet and beginning his quest. What a way to get the player invested. Every element works together here, and it makes you feel satisfied before you even start playing. This game has some of the best presentation in any NES game, and one of the best in the Mega Man franchise, that opening cutscene being an example. Gameplay transitions are fluid, and even if you go in blind, you can pick up on what to do, allowing it to be both cool and informative for the player. The only negative in regards to the presentation is how slow the weapon gets sequences. You cannot skip it, so you have to wait for the text to finish typing itself. If you get a utility alongside a weapon, it takes even longer, and I could say each utility sequence takes at least 30 seconds of waiting. Whereas the Japanese version of this game does not have any selectable difficulty, the international versions have a normal and a difficult mode. And all this changes is how strong your attacks will be against enemies. The difficult mode is the definitive way to play the game, as how it was in the Japanese release. But the normal mode still allows for newcomers to not have so much of a hard time when dropping into this game. It's a nice way to provide skill accessibility. While the first game didn't have any save feature of sorts, we got something here. Every time you complete a stage, you have the option to look at a little password, and you can write it down as you wish. And whenever you boot up your game, you could type that password in and pick up where you left off. All of the control issues in the first game, such as dropping like a rock and falling through footholder platforms and continuing to move after you collect the pickup, have all been fixed here, which streamlines the control scheme to be more stable. The only thing wonky about your control is that if you take damage, then go into a state where the game temporarily pauses the action, like filling up health or weapon energy, or transitioning between rooms, your iframes don't pause with it, which means you may get hit twice in unnecessary situations. There's some other glitches that could probably break the game either in your favor or not in your favor. Pausing in midair will reset your falling speed and allow you to scum many challenges like the spike drop or the second E-tank in Metal Man stage. For the weapons that use decimal ammo like Bubble Lead, Metal Blade, and Quick Boomerang, if you pause before a bar has been drained, you will reset it back to the prior decimal, and thus you'll have infinite ammo for those weapons if you keep pausing. Spawning multiple item 1s and then hugging the boss door could teleport you to a glitched Wily stage or even softlock you in a glitched room. Having 8 Robot Masters instead of 6 definitely provides more non-linearity, and it helps lengthen your playtime, and it allows the weakness order to be more diverse, especially in Mega Man 2's case, where most Robot Masters have at least 2 weaknesses that you can branch off in so many ways. Just like the first game, there's a lot of iconic Robot Masters here, and you'll remember them for how they stand on their own. Metal Man has a really cool and powerful weapon, Quickman can prove to be a challenging adversary, and Airman just has this really ridiculous look. Imagine the outer outline of his fan as his mouth, and he's just screaming silently for the rest of his life. Mega Man 2's soundtrack is easily one of the best in the series. Every song has the right amount of energy to fit the situation and boasts really catchy melodies. There's not a single bad song in this game. My personal favorite is Metal Man Stage, but other shoutouts would be Flash Man Stage, Bubble Man Stage, Air Man Stage, and Wily Stage 1 and 2. And even though there is only one boss theme across every boss fight, it never gets repetitive because of the hype it brings. The level design of this game has many different types of challenges that you encounter in each stage, some of which could be unique to that stage. They each require you to fight either a bunch of enemies grouped together, or avoid some gimmicks, or a mix of both. It's more diverse this time around thanks to the wider array of enemies and gimmicks utilized, and I can appreciate it for that. I can remember Metal Man Stage for having conveyor belts and vicious presses, Woodman Stage for having a lot of combat against woodland robots, Quickman Stage with the tight force beam areas, and Airman Stage for having these friendly cloud platforms to ride on for a nice breezy ride. The game also has its fair share of Easter eggs. If you hold jump while choosing a Robot Master, the stars in the background will become little co-PBs. The very end of Crashman Stage just before the boss gate has a couple of stars that are brighter than the others, and highlighted in the shape of the Big Dipper constellation. One of the fortress bosses is the Guts Tank, a massive tank modeled in the image of Gutsman himself, a Robot Master from the previous game. Mega Man 2 also introduced E-Tanks to the series, a new kind of valuable pickup in the stages. When you collect one, they are stored in your inventory and can be used at any point to fill up your health bar completely. You can hold up to 4 at a time, and I like them being a sort of safety net if you're not doing too hot in a boss fight. Some other things I like is that a game over will remove all of your E-Tanks as an extra punishment, and there's not too many E-Tanks in the game in comparison to 1-ups, making for a pretty balanced ratio. I bring this up because later games get a little too crazy. Rather than just having 95% of enemies be the ones that swarm you in clusters, Mega Man 2 is here to give you more variation in that regard. We still got those massive horrors of small enemies that swarm you, but there's also bigger enemies that usually take up whole sections by themselves due to what they can throw at you, and they can take quite a beating. We even get mid-bosses in the form of these triple hot dogs in Woodman Stage. But best of all, Big Fish! A fascinating specimen that only appears in Wily 3 and jumps out of the water to try and clamp you, but he's very slow. While their usage leaves a little to be desired, they are the first case of an enemy being exclusive to a fortress stage, so that's something. On the opposite argument, level design can get boring with nothing really going on, or if there just isn't enough in one particular section of a stage. In Metal Man Stage, there's roughly 5 screens in a row with no enemy interaction. Crashman Stage is a very vertical stage with a lot of ladder climbing. It's not as bad as Electman Stage, but there is some emptiness here and there. And knowing the right pathways in Flashman Stage can allow you to skip a lot of enemy encounters. A fun fact about Mega Man 2's development was that the stages were designed before the Robot Masters got finalized, which makes for some really weird pairings. A few of them worked out really well, like Metal Man Stage or Quickman Stage, but there's some stinkers like Heat Man Stage that wasn't designed around a fire motif and has no fire enemies, so the lava was practically slapped on at the last second. Heck, there's a hothead in Quickman Stage. There are some areas that could easily lead to force damage if you're not prepared, the biggest case being Crashman's PP Tower. You won't be able to make it up in time before the PPs get to you, so you need to use either Time Stopper, Leaf Shield, or Metal Blade to protect yourself. Flashman Stage in general is designed like a split path kind of maze, but this leads to having really tight corridors, which makes it easy for enemies like the Crazy Cannons or that one room with the squirms to get a cheap shot at you. Thankfully, none of these scenarios lead to you taking a lot of damage, you just have to keep it in mind. As for boss fights, we have a pretty solid lineup, for both Robot Masters and Fortress bosses. They demand just enough from newcomers, and they even reward skillful play if you're a veteran. The biggest examples are Crashman. You could do the basic strategy of only hitting him once on the way up, which guarantees victory, but it's very tedious. But with good timing, you can hit him up to 4 times before he shoots another Crash Bomb. Woodman's shield can be shot through if you stand really close to him, a tactic that rewards risky behavior. And Mecha Dragon has this cool set piece of him chasing you across platforms before the actual battle begins. Metal Man is my favorite boss fight as far as all the Robot Masters are concerned. You could opt to 2 different methods of fighting him, and you have to take advantage of every opportunity to deal damage, and the ever-changing conveyor belt keeps things dynamic. This is especially bolstered by very short boss iframes, which carry a significant impact in making these boss fights fun and fast-paced. Most of the boss weaknesses are well designed to counter that boss's pattern, making it easier to defeat them with the weakness, besides just shooting them with it to do more damage. Using Bubble Lead on Heatman allows you to drop it on top of him instead of shooting him at his level. Using Crash Bomb against Flashman will reward you for precisely timing it so that the bomb deals multiple hits to him as he uses Time Stopper. Using Quick Boomerang on Metal Man can net you an easy win if you simply hold it in front of his face. Using Time Stopper on Quick Man will race up to half of his health with just 1 button press. Woodman has a lot of weaknesses, most obvious being Atomic Fire, which you can charge while he holds up a shield and then shoot it pretty much after he gets rid of the shield. On the other weaknesses, Air Shooter can shoot through a shield very easily, and Crash Bomb can be detonated on his shield to make it explode prematurely. And Metal Blade in of itself is the bane of many Robot Masters here. Flashman can be juggled along a wall or killed before he can even touch you. Bubble Man could be sniped from all angles, and shout out to Metal Man for being extremely weak to his own weapon. Good gravy, is that funny. Certain boss fights, however, do have these wonky patterns that can result in inevitable damage, or damage that's really difficult to avoid more than it should be. Airman's attack pattern has 2 setups of tornadoes that are nearly pixel perfect with dodging it and could easily result in you getting hit. Quickman's pattern is actually bugged out. He normally is supposed to jump 3 times before he runs, but he can get stuck in the far walls, creating an illusion of him being random. Wily Machine 2's second phase shoots bouncing balls that apparently have inflated hitboxes, which means it's impossible to dodge all of them. Another setback with the bosses is that the Fortress bosses always cause screen flashing in one way or another, whether it's directly hurting them or successfully winning the boss fight. It can trigger epilepsy pretty easily, or at the very least put some mild strain on your eyes. The weapons in this game are more technical in their usage and normally require you to find the right places or the right enemies to use that weapon against in order to maximize their power. With the case of Time Stopper, even though you cannot cancel its effect and you're unable to shoot during the effect, every single Robot Master stage has at least one section where you can use it to just completely bypass that section. Lots of enemies have insta-kill weaknesses to certain weapons and are even placed in rooms where you can take advantage of it. The Hotheads are weak to Bubble Lead and Air Shooter. The Crazy Cannons are weak to Leaf Shield. Crash Bomb powers through Pier Robots and immediately destroys Blocky. Both Bubble Lead and Crash Bomb are effective against Robins. Sniper Joes are weak to Quick Boomerang, Bubble Lead, and Air Shooter. And lastly, Bubble Lead also gets a use for detecting fake floors in Wily 4. On the flip side, several weapons are held back by a bunch of unfair circumstances. Some of them may cost too much and can't be used consistently, like Crash Bomb and Atomic Fire. Or weapons just ding off of way too many enemies like Air Shooter and especially Bubble Lead. Then enter Metal Blade. As fun and awesome as it is to use, it is the most overpowered weapon in the entire series of Mega Man by far, maybe even all of gaming. You got these giant buzzsaws that eclipse your buster size, and they can be aimed in all 8 directions, omnidirectional. You can throw 3 of them at a time. They completely shred through a lot of enemies that weapons like Bubble Lead will have a hard time with, and their ammo count is so high that you practically never run out of Metal Blades. Seriously, this weapon could just slice this game in half. There are just only two enemies that ding Metal Blade, the Sniper Armor and the Springer, but those enemies are designed that you could avoid them anyway. Instead of Magnet Beam, you get 3 new utilities, which are a huge improvement as far as execution is concerned. Rather than finding them in a stage, you simply get them after beating a stage. Item 1 from Heatman, Item 2 from Airman, and Item 3 from Flashman. In the Robomaster stages, you mostly use them to access really nice goodies like 1-ups or E-tanks, though you can also pull off some cool skips like using Item 1 to skip the crash lifts, and using Item 2 to skip the final Yoku Block section in Heatman stage, while in the Wily stages you're required to use them in creative ways to progress. Speaking of Wily stages, after you defeat your final Robot Master, you'll immediately transition to a cutscene showing Dr. Wily taunting you with his classic eyebrow motion before swooping down inside his brand new Wily castle. You'll be revisiting this shot of the castle multiple times because this game actually pinpoints your location throughout the castle in the form of little dots that represent the stages, with lines connecting the dots to show how far your progress has been. It's a cool detail that would get repeated in almost every Mega Man game going forward. Not only does it give the Fortress stages more flair, we also get a glimpse of the sheer magnitude of Wily's intellect and what his base looks like from the outside. Unfortunately, most of the Wily stages drop the ball when it comes to challenge escalation and the level design. Either there's not enough enemies to keep you busy, or too little enemy variation, or the stages are too short. At least it feels like they're too short. There are some cool things done, such as using Item 2 over spikes, and waiting just a bit to grab a second ladder containing way too many goodies. The big fish from earlier, a spike drop in the water, or the fake floors that can only be detected using bubble lead. But ultimately, it's just not enough, and the difficulty curve falters because of it. Another minus for the Wily stages is that if you die to a boss, you get sent to the stage's halfway checkpoint, which means there's no checkpoint directly before the boss. Depending on the stage, this could really hurt your momentum. Say Wily 1, if you lose to Mecha Dragon, you're gonna have to use Item 1 again to get back to the boss, but you might run out eventually, given that the stages no longer respawn pickups after you collect them. This is most apparent in Wily 4 thanks to the Boo Beam Trap. Before you head to the rematches, you have to fight this final security defense system. The fight takes place within this one sprawling maze-like room, and the goal is that you have to destroy the 5 wall drones by moving around the room using your items. There are a lot of breakable walls that normally require a crash bomb for them to be broken, but the wall drones can only be destroyed with crash bomb. Nothing else will hurt them. The biggest puzzle scratcher here is that you only have 7 crash bombs at max capacity and there's 5 enemies, so you can't blow up all the walls willy-nilly. While this is a cool concept for a boss and plays out relatively well in practice, you are forced to have full ammo on crash bombs before the boss fight, because if you run out, there's no way to get back your ammo in the boss fight and you have to die. Which also means you have to resupply your crash bombs if you want to beat the boss again. But trying to grind off Sniper Joes or Mets for weapon energy is painful and kills the pacing of the game. Please do not die to this boss. After Boo Beam Trap, we are dropped in a large room of 8 teleporters, with your new task being you must defeat all 8 Robot Masters again. But this time you have all their weaknesses and know what makes them tick. This is the first introduction to such a room that once again gives you the freedom to take down your targets in whatever order you wish. Each defeat also dropping big health for you to recover. It's a little rough though, as all the refight rooms have flat floors with no obstacles carried over, making Flashman, Quickman, and Metalman much easier, and Bubbleman does not have spikes on his ceiling. If there's one good thing about Boo Beam Trap, there's a trick you can do to actually make it out of the fight with 1 crash bomb remaining. One of the drones is very close to a wall that is blocking off another drone. If you place a crash bomb in between the drone and the wall, you'll be killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and can then save a single crash bomb in your inventory. What would you need a single crash bomb for? Wily Machine 2 has 2 phases, just like the first Wily Machine. The second phase is weak to Crash Bomb, but only gets damaged lightly when you shoot it directly. So what do? When the machine is about to double back from getting too close to the left side, you have to shoot a Crash Bomb directly underneath the cockpit so the explosion goes off and hits Wily multiple times until the machine is destroyed or at least damaged severely. I honestly can't tell if Boo Beam Trap was designed so this specific one-shot trick could work, because it's so genius, and I can't think of any Mega Man game later on that pulls off something just like this. Upon defeating the Wily machine, the floor collapses below you and you get dropped into a secret stage that was hidden from the map. The stage itself has no music and no signs of technology, just an eerie underground cave, and the only sound that you can hear from miles away are the splats of red acid dripping from the ceiling. It also helps that these acid drops override most other sound effects, like your buster shots or you getting hurt. At the end of the cavernous hallway, Dr. Wily reveals himself from the UFO and transforms into a freaking alien! No wonder why he's so persistent on world domination. Alien has a very simple pattern of looping in a figure 8 and firing shots at you within fast intervals. He seems impossible to beat. Every single attack of yours will get absorbed instantly to heal him, except for Bubble Lead, the most counterintuitive weapon to use on airborne targets. Essentially, you're forced out of your comfort zone and you have to get close to hurt him, which always puts you at risk of getting hurt by his heavy-hitting attacks. And just when it seems like the world is falling apart around you as you deal the final blow, turns out, oh, that silly Wily was just pranking you. The only flaw with the alien's boss fight is if you don't have enough Bubble Lead, then you have to game over because Wily 6 doesn't have any weapon pickups. After once again putting a stop to Dr. Wily's schemes, we got this ending sequence that always resonates with me. Mega Man is walking home to the beat of this somber music and thinking about home, with the weather around him reflecting the different weapons he used, the battles he survived, the memories of his adventure. His time as Mega Man has come to an end and he can finally put it to rest, with the only thing left of him being his battle helmet, abandoned on the bright grassy fields of peace. There's no dialogue in this sequence, but the message is clear. You can see Capcom reflecting on how this might be the last Mega Man game they ever work on. It's a tough topic to think about, that the franchise could have very well ended after the second game. Of course, that didn't happen and Mega Man 2 would become a massive hit. While Mega Man 1 created the formula in its own weird way, the second game defined it, and us fans owe it to this game for introducing many quality of life improvements and kickstarting the franchise into what it is today. In the end, I've come up with 23 pros and 14 cons. I really do enjoy this game. Even though it's a bit on the easy side, it just has so much passion and nuance that make it fun to come back to. There are still problems to look out for, but I don't think they burden the game down very much, and I'll still recommend this game regardless. So with that, I'm going to give Mega Man 2 a rating of 8 out of 10. Great! Well, that's the end of this review. If you like what you saw, please give a like and subscribe to my channel. It'll help me out with publicity and, getting more support. I'll have the links to my Discord server and Mega Man 1 video in the description if any of you are interested. Last week, I announced that I'll do a Mega Man 1 remix for free if that video can reach 1,000 views, and I'll be doing that same milestone with this video for a Mega Man 2 remix. As for the next video game I'm going to review, I'm debating whether I should do another Mega Man game or look at a new franchise altogether, so feel free to comment a suggestion that I should look into. With that said, I'll be signing off. Take care, folks.